What's up guys, Tony here. Today I'm going to do an overview of all 42 games included on the Sega Genesis Mini. Now I promised a review of every single game included on this system, and I'm still going to do that. That's going to be sprinkled throughout the year of 2019, the rest of the year, and just be on the lookout for those. I also reviewed a big chunk of them already. Check them out on my channel. Alright guys, let's get into all 42 games included on the Sega Genesis Mini. Thanks for watching. Alright guys, so the purpose of this video is to explore all 42 games on the Sega Genesis Mini. Now I'm not going to play a whole lot of games on here, I might play one or two. And if you want to see me play through all 42 games, a little bit here, a little bit there, check out my live stream I did on all 42 games of the Sega Genesis Mini. I'll leave a link down in the description below for you guys to check out. Also, I have done reviews on a lot of these games already, and I'll tell you whether or not I've reviewed them. And I will do reviews of all 42 games. It'll be sprinkled throughout the rest of 2019, so be on the lookout for those. Alright, now I have organized this by genre, and there's some games that I'm like, why did they put this on this thing? And there's some games I'm like, yes, this is a very good choice, a very good pick on Sega's behalf. And there's some that are just no-brainers. So first off, Alex Kidd and the Enchanted Castle. This game is very old school, kind of archaic, and very difficult. One-hit deaths, and just very strange. You have that rock, paper, scissors game, and I get it. Alex Kidd was the mascot for Sega early on, but I'm glad he's not the mascot for Sega anymore. So I'm gonna say pass on this game. It's not that good. There could have been other choices, even better Sega IPs to put on this system. I will do a video about that as well. Be on the lookout for that. Top 5 games that don't belong on the Sega Genesis Mini, and then 5 games to replace them. Next up, you got Castle of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse. I reviewed this one, and if you want more thoughts on it, just go watch that video. Now, I thought Sega was killing it with these choices of Castle of Illusion and World of Illusion. Both are solid picks, and when I think Sega Genesis games, this is right up there. Now this one is not as good as World, but again, it's a very solid platforming game, and you're gonna have a lot of fun. It's almost like an entry-level platforming game, so this one would be good for the kiddos. Castlevania Bloodlines. Oh yeah. 100% yes, does belong on the Sega Genesis Mini. One of the best Sega Genesis games ever. The soundtrack is so good, the graphics so good. I love that you have a choice between 2 characters, John Morris and Eric Lacarde, and you just go through Europe. You're trying to stop Dracula. It's a Castlevania game. You're gonna have a ton of fun. Dynamite Headdy. Now, I was on the fence with this one. This is another platforming game, and it is so wacky. It's so Japanese-like, and there's a lot of Japanese influence in this game, you could tell. But I've live streamed it, I've played it again, and I gotta say, this is a solid Sega Genesis platforming game. And it is wacky. It's not the 90s wacky that you would think of, but it's still a good inclusion on this Sega Genesis Mini system. Next up, you have Earthworm Jim. This was a perfect choice by Sega! I'm not gonna lie, this game epitomizes the 1990s. And I actually prefer this game over the Super Nintendo version. Believe it or not, I love the soundtrack here. I love the graphics. They're so fitting, so raw, so gritty. And this game, again, like I said, a perfect example of the 1990s. The weirdness, the wackiness, the grossness, and there's a nice variety of levels. You're going to love Earthworm Jim himself. He can actually whip his own head as a weapon, for crying out loud. and just so weird. So yeah, I gotta say, a great choice. Next, you have Ghouls and Ghosts. Ugh. So I am not saying this is a bad game. I'm just saying it was a bad choice. And I actually got a lot of flack on my review of this game. And I stand by it. It's too difficult. And there are a lot better choices out there to put on the Sega Genesis Mini instead of this game. Next, you have Kid Chameleon. This one, I'm kind of torn on why they included it on the Sega Genesis Mini, but again, it's one of those no-brainers, and this is a good platforming Sega Genesis game, an early Sega Genesis game, and you're gonna have fun with it, and there's a lot of content here, a lot of abilities, and yeah, another example of 90s dude here. Just look at the cover, Kid Chameleon. Good grief. So I'm going to give it a pass and say yeah. And I understand why they put it on the Sega Genesis Mini. But again, there are better games out there. Next, you have Megaman, the Wily Wars. And it is so awesome that they put this on here. It's so awesome that they included this game. This was on the Sega channel and a Sega channel exclusive. And yeah, I mean, it's Mega Man 1, 2, and 3. So you're getting 3 for 1 here. So that's another good thing. And again, you can't play this other than buying a bootleg cartridge or emulating it. So this was a no-brainer. This was a very good choice on Sega's behalf. And yeah, kudos to them. Shinobi 3. I am going to say 100% yes on this one. Compared to Shinobi 1 and then also Shadow Dancer, this is the absolute best one in the series. And I love the graphics. I love all the abilities. The levels are a ton of fun going through and beating the bosses. Oh man. Oh man. You're going to have a blast. Sonic 1. I'm just going to say this. Duh. It does need to be on the Sega Genesis Mini. Same with Sonic the Hedgehog 2. And I've said this enough. Why did they exclude Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Sonic and Knuckles? Okay? I don't understand why. I would actually like an explanation. And some of those earlier games I said don't belong on this system. You could have put Sonic 3, you could have put Sonic and Knuckles, and you would have made a lot of fans happy. Sonic Spinball. This game is garbage. I hate this game. I detest this game. I bought this game back in the day and I thought I was going to have a fun little Sonic game. And it is not a Sonic game. I think it's a pile of crap, just to be honest with you guys. And it always gets included on these compilations. It always gets included in these collections. And I don't know why. It is not fun. It is not good. And they could have put Phantasy Star 2 on here and taken this off, and I would have been happy. I would have been fine. And I don't like Phantasy Star 2. So, yeah. I am happy they did not put Sonic 3D Blast on here. So, there is that caveat too. Normally they would put that on there, include it with their collections, include it on the Mini, but yeah, I hate this game. Strider. Other than having a wacky cover that doesn't fit the actual character, this is a great choice. This is a hack and slash platforming game, and it's Strider. It's Strider. It's tough as nails, but again, very playable, very fun, and you're going to have a blast going through this game. World of Illusion, I kind of already hit on this. This was an excellent choice. Also, you have the brand of Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck, Disney Power, helping sell the Sega Genesis Mini. And on top of that, this is a great game. Awesome game. I think it's a lot better than Castle of Illusion. The graphics are 100% better. And just the gameplay is a lot smoother, and you don't have to pounce on the enemies and all that stuff, and also it's a 2-player game. Altered Beast. I understand why they include this particular game on a lot of collections. This was a release title with the Sega Genesis Mini in 1989, and it's also an arcade game. I get it. I'm just not a huge fan of Altered Beast. I still like Altered Beast, so I'm going to give it a pass and say, yeah, it makes sense why they put it on here. Comic Zone. Oh man. Other than being a really difficult beat 'em up game, beat 'em up style kind of fighting game type style, you basically go through the levels. They're designed to be like a comic book, and you actually have some choices of picking where you can go in the level, and there's some replayability there, but the game is relentlessly hard. You only get one life, but again, it's a late release. Great choice. I understand why. Golden Axe. Now, you had a choice between Golden Axe 1, 2, or 3. Now, personally, I would have put Golden Axe 2 on there, or 3, but I get it. This is the game that started it all, and it's very close to the arcade game, the original arcade game, and you're going to have fun with any of these Golden Axe games. So I get why Sega put the first one on. It's the original, and still a lot of fun to this day. Streets of Rage 2. Oh man, oh man, oh man. I'm so excited for Streets of Rage 4, by the way. And in my opinion, this is the best Streets of Rage game out there. Beat 'em up style. So much fun. This might be the best beat 'em up on the system. Now, I do love me some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Hyperstone Heist, but this, it's so classic, so 90s. The soundtrack is excellent, by the way. Ecco the Dolphin. I get why they put Ecco on the system. I understand why. It's an iconic Sega Genesis game. I understand that. But in my opinion, there are 100 better games on the system than Ecco the Dolphin. I do not like Ecco personally. I don't like the exploration, even though that's what the game is. I just can't get very far in this game. I mean, I don't know. I get it. Ecco was a big hit for the Sega Genesis back in the day. So why not put it on the Sega Genesis Mini? So I'm going to give it a borderline pass just because it does make sense. I personally just do not like Ecco the Dolphin. Next, you have Monster World 4. And this, great choice. Great choice by Sega. This game was not released in the United States, so why not? Monster World is a great series, and I've been playing this game off and on, and I'm going to tell you, it was an awesome choice by Sega. The gameplay is so good, and it fits in with the rest of the Monster World series, and I would love a remastered version of this game. Toe Jam and Earl. This is a no-brainer. Great choice by Sega. You gotta have Toe Jam and Earl. You gotta have it on the Sega Genesis Mini. Oh, man, I absolutely love this game. You're gonna love the exploration. You're gonna love tracking down the pieces to your ship, the presents. The enemies are so wacky and can be frustrating. Also, you and a buddy can play this together. Oh man, it is so much fun. Next up, you have Tetris, and it's Tetris. It's a weird version of Tetris, and I don't know if this should have been included, but again, you have the name recognition of Tetris, and this is a very expensive cartridge too to track down. A very hard one to track down as well, so that's cool too. I'm going to take that into consideration and say, yeah, why not? And it's one of the quote-unquote bonus games included. Next is Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. It's Puyo Puyo. It's okay. I mean, there's not a whole lot of great puzzle games on the Sega Genesis. This would be one of them that I would say is good. So I'm going to say pass on this one. This is a passable choice. I just don't like it. It's alright. It's alright. Let's just say that. Next, you have Columns. Again, I get it. Okay, so Sega had to have some kind of puzzle games. They had to have some kind of puzzle game to basically go against Tetris, go against Nintendo. And Columns, in my opinion, it's just not that fun. It doesn't have that fun factor that Tetris does, but you gotta have it. I mean, this choice is actually better than Columns 3, which is actually on the Sega Genesis Classics collection. I don't know. I just get really bored with it. So this is a borderline let it pass, let it go through title, I guess. Next, Road Rash 2. Oh man, I love Road Rash in general. And I played Road Rash 1, 2, and 3 on the Sega Genesis back in the day. Now, I'd have to go back and play 3 a little bit more. I'm not as familiar with 3 as I thought. But 2 is just as good of a choice as any of them. So, really, just a ton of fun. Racing game. The graphics aren't the best, I'll say that. And you can basically beat up your opponents. You have weapons. You gotta avoid the police. Great motorcycle racing game. Next up, you have Shining Force. This is a tactical RPG. A lot of gameplay here, anywhere between 30 to 50 hours, depending on how much you want to grind, how much you want to play. You can recruit characters to your Shining Force, and absolutely love this series, absolutely love this game. Now, I would have liked to have Shining Force 2 included on the Sega Genesis Mini, but I could play that literally anywhere. It's on the Sega Genesis Classics. So, yeah, there's that little minor complaint with Shining Force 1. Next, you have Phantasy Star 4. Oh, man, I was actually very pleased that they did not include Phantasy Star 2 or 3. I'm not the biggest fan of those games. I think that they just don't play very well. They're not as smooth as Phantasy Star 4. Phantasy Star 4 is a lot more polished. And also, it just seems like it moves a lot quicker. The battles move a lot quicker. Your characters actually move on the screen at a much quicker pace. And the story is a little bit more flowing. And there's actually more story involved. So I gotta say yes. And also, you're gonna have anywhere from 40 to 60 hours of gameplay here, depending on how much you want to grind. And just how much you're willing to sit down and level up your characters. I love the characters. I love Chaz, and just the entire story is awesome. Light Crusader. You know, I had a very negative viewpoint on this game before playing this on the Mini, and I don't like isometric style games. I'm gonna rip a game here in a minute. Alright, so I gotta say that this was a decent choice, but you could have put better RPGs on here. It's alright, okay? It's a decent title. You're gonna explore the dungeon, and you're gonna find various upgrades to your character, you know, follow through the story, all that stuff. The combat's alright, it's just the isometric thing kind of gets me off. And Treasure is an excellent game company, and they produce a lot of great Sega Genesis games. So I'm going to say that one is passable. Next up, Landstalker. If there's one game that I would like taken off of the Sega Genesis Mini, it'd be this game. I hate Landstalker. This game is a pile of crap. I absolutely hate it. It's so stupid. The character is so goofy looking, so weird looking. I can't stand it. I hate the isometric approach. It even says it here. The game's isometric approach to 3D action will take some quick thinking. Well, I had some quick thinking for you. Take this game off the Mini! This game's terrible. And I will rip this game a new one once I get to it. So, Landstalker does not belong on the Sega Genesis Mini. I'm sorry if you are a fan of this series. I can't stand it. It's so awkward. It's just so difficult for all the wrong reasons. And I hate the controls. I can't tell where the heck I'm going in this game. Next up, Beyond Oasis. So on the flip side, this game is totally awesome and does belong on the Sega Genesis Mini. And it's quote-unquote a Zelda clone, and that, I mean, it is inspired by Zelda. You can tell it's inspired by Zelda. It's a top-down view, but it's so gorgeous. The story is so good. There's cutscenes, and I absolutely love it. Great choice, and you are just gonna fall in love with the soundtrack. You're gonna fall in love with the graphics, the gameplay, the dungeons, the bosses, you name it. Thunder Force 3. I can't get very far in this game, so I'm not gonna have a very strong opinion of this game, one way or the other. I'm not a huge fan of this series. I'm not a very good shoot 'em up player, so I'm not gonna say one way or the other. I know it's a very popular title on the Sega Genesis, and when people talk about the best shoot 'em ups on the system, this is up there. So I'm gonna say, yeah, it belongs? Question mark. Now this one was a weird choice. Super Fantasy Zone. Yeah, I love Super Fantasy Zone. I love Fantasy Zone in general, but it's a strange choice, and I'm sure that there are actually better shoot 'em ups out there on the Sega Genesis. So I don't know. I like it. I actually really like the graphics. I like the style of the game. It's a shoot 'em up in every single word. So I don't know. I'm on the fence with this one. Space Harrier 2. So this was an early Sega Genesis release, and it's the sequel to the original Space Harrier, the arcade game, and it's Space Harrier. Yeah, I don't know. You either really like Space Harrier or you don't. I actually prefer the 32X version of Space Harrier, and I could either take it or leave it here again. So it's just a matter of preference. But again, you could have put actual better Sega IP games on here than just Space Harrier 2. Darius. So again, I'm on the fence with this one. I couldn't make it very far in this game, and this was quote unquote one of the bonus games as well. Never released on the system, and actually there are some updates to it, and there's some 2019 updates to it, so I actually like that. There's some more options with it, and if you're a shoot 'em up fan, this is huge. This is awesome. You're gonna like it. Me, I just suck at shoot 'em ups. I enjoy them, but again, I'm not very good at them. So on the fence, I'm gonna say yes, and also just the cool factor that this was never released, so yeah, why not have it on here? And the special modes are really cool. Vector Man. Now, I'm actually surprised they did not put Vector Man 2 on here. This is kind of a run and gun, just shoot the enemies, destroy the enemies, go to the boss, beat the boss, go through the levels, and it's fun, it's good, but it is really, really, really difficult. And I've never actually beaten Vector Man or Vector Man 2. And again, why didn't they put Vector Man 2 on the Sega Genesis Mini? Next, you have Gunstar Heroes. This is one of the best Sega Genesis games, period. Run and gun, made perfect by Treasure. Treasure is so good, and you're gonna have a lot of fun just going through the levels. The boss fights are wacky, the boss fights are memorable and amazing, and you can also play 2-player. And the thing I like about it so much is it's not one-hit kills. You actually have a life bar, you have some life, and it's not super difficult, and I absolutely love Gunstar Heroes. Contra Hardcore. Okay, so I'm gonna say it does belong on the Sega Genesis Mini. I'm just not good at it. I need more practice with it. I have not actually played this game till this very year. This game is included on the Konami Contra collection, and you can play it on that. You can download it off of the PlayStation Network or Xbox Live, or you can actually get it on Steam or the Nintendo Switch eShop. So you can play it other ways. I just am not good at it. It is very difficult, very hard, but it's a ton of fun. It is a Contra game. There are some differences here and there, and you have a choice between 1 to 4 characters, and also there's some multiplayer going on here too. So next up you have Alicia Dragoon. This is a decent title. This is a decent choice for the Sega Genesis Mini. And basically you go through the levels, and you have your lightning attacks, and you also have these creatures you can summon, you know, like a dragon, etc. And you can use your lightning, and it's auto aim. I actually really like that, but man, it is a difficult game. But it's not bad, it's fun. So I'm going to give it a pass and say, yeah, it does belong on the Sega Genesis Mini. Next, Virtua Fighter 2. I'm trying to restrain myself. I'm trying to hold back here. I will tear into this game when I review it, but I have got to say this is one of the worst choices on the Sega Genesis Mini. I understand the name, Virtua Fighter. I understand the series, Virtua Fighter, and why you would include it on the Sega Genesis Mini. It's just, this is one of the worst ways to play Virtua Fighter. It is not fun. It is not a good game. I mean, my gosh, I'd rather play this on the R zone. Okay, that tiger is strapped around your head and play this game just looking at one little red screen. I'd rather play it on there than this crap. This crap is awful. The characters are just so bland, and the graphics are just not good. I mean, when you know there's better choices out there, why would you subject yourself to this crap? And just play the 32X version, just play the Sega Saturn version, just play some of the newer games. Avoid this game at all costs. I hate it. Next you have Street Fighter 2 Special Champion Edition. Now, this version is not going to be as good as the arcade, obviously, or the Super Nintendo versions. And I gotta say, the graphics, the sound effects, the soundtrack are inferior to the Super Nintendo version, but it's still a decent version of Street Fighter 2. You're gonna have a lot of fun with it. Now, one big gripe I have is the Sega Genesis Mini only has a 3-button controller, so you're gonna have to track down the 6-button controller and play it that way. I recommend that highly. Now, my one complaint, my one gripe is they did not include Mortal Kombat 1, 2, or 3. And they missed an opportunity here. Mortal Kombat 1 would have been a solid choice, or MK2. So, I don't know. That's my only little gripe there with this. And I would say this is a good choice. Eternal Champions. This is another fighting game. And again, the 3-button controller, that's going to be a handicap here, but you could still play it with the 3-button controller. And this was Sega's answer to Mortal Kombat, and it is a Mortal Kombat clone, but it is a good one. I love the characters, I love the fatalities, I love the special moves, and just a lot of fun. I actually really like the story, and I did a review of this one too, so check out my thoughts about it on that review. And then last but not least, we have Wonder Boy and Monster World. Solid choice. This is an action platforming game with RPG elements, and just a great title. So many gamers love this title, and it's a blast. So there's my overview of all 42 games on the Sega Genesis Mini. Now, I have shared some deeper thoughts on some of these already in some of my reviews, and I will continue to do that on my channel throughout the year of 2019. What's your favorite Sega Genesis game, and what's your favorite Sega Genesis mini game included on the Mini? Let me know down in the comments below. Alright guys, well thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know if you want more videos like this. Have a great rest of your day.